rush. They were second in the NFL in pass rush win rate in week one, Grant, but they did not ultimately finish going up against a more elusive and mobile quarterback in Daniel Jones, who has had tremendous success on the ground and through the air against this defense. What's your confidence level that the guys are going to be able to finish this weekend? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Grant Paulson with us here on the Pre-Game Show. Denton Day, Lynnell Willingham with you on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. Grant, we're going to get to see Johnny Newton today. Do you have any expectations for what he'll look like in his debut?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm curious to see with him active, how does it change how they diversify their fronts? We saw them, deploy a bunch of different looks in camp, running their games and twists and stunts and loops. So I think he definitely helps them out in that category. The big issue for Washington defensively, though, has been the outside corner spot. We knew it at the end of last year. We knew it this offseason, and we knew it going into last weekend in their game against Tampa. Benjamin St. Juste, I thought was okay. He was just going up against Mike Evans. In terms of your confidence level in him, do you think he is a cat that can eventually right his wrongs and become, the eventual starting outside corner for this group long term? Because I still think internally they've got those type of expectations for him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. for sure.
All right, Grant, we'll get you out of here with this one. It's prediction time. Do the Commanders get their first win of the season? Do they fall to 0-2 this week?
There we go. There we go.
Grant, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the game this evening, or this afternoon, rather. That is Grant Paulson, good enough to give us some time here on the Burgundy Gold Pre-Game Show. So that's two predictions, two winners.
Two ugly games. Kevin and Grant predicted, I would say.
I mean, were you expecting a sexy game?
Oh, well, with these two teams, no. I think Grant brings up cyber. I think it just shows how bad Washington was defensively last week. That we are harping on that, and I'm scared about that. We have our third-place kicker in here, or excuse me, our fourth-place kicker in here since Dan Quinn's taken the job. So in a sloppy game, which I expect, I think he's going to have to play a big role, like Grant alluded to.
Man, if kicker jerseys were a thing, you would have a list as long as the list of quarterbacks that this team has had over the past 25, 30 years or so. Thankfully for kickers, there's not a lot of kicker jerseys out there. All right, coming up next, we'll take a look at the offense. To help us do that will be our guy, Craig Hoffman. He'll join us on the other side. It's the Burgundy Gold Pre-Game Show with Denton, Lynnell Willingham on 106.7 The Fan, the Team 980. Your mic is live.
Is a matter of steps.
Your mic is live on the stream.
So I need to mute it?
Yeah.
Gold Pre-Game Show with Lynnell Willingham and Denton Day. Presented by Rude. If it ain't rude, it ain't right.
Burgundy Gold Pre-Game Show. Denton Day, Lynnell Willingham with you on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. Lynnell, Craig brought up, we just had Craig Hoffman on the show. Craig made a mention of something I think is particularly relevant and something that I would really like to see get better today. So he mentioned a play where, and we talked about this all week on both 106.7 and the Team 980, where Jaden tucked the ball and ran, but it looked like he had Terry McLaurin open down the field for, at the very least, a big play, at the very best, a touchdown. One of the things that I noticed last week is that when Jaden tucks it, he's tucking it, and he's going. I'd like to see a couple of plays this week against a defense that is worse on the back end, and a defense that just generally speaking does not have the speed and athleticism that Tampa Bay did last week. I would like to see instances of him, even if he is stepping up in the pocket, the threat of a run, drawing defenders up, but keeping his eyes up to then push the ball down the field. I do think there are going to be spots today where chunk plays or big plays will be available if he just holds to the potential of throwing for even if it's just a half second longer. I'd like to see that. When we talk about Jaden Daniels and the offense performing better this week, that's one of those things that I look at and say I'd really like for that element to be better.
I think it has to be, Denton. There were some plays that he left on the field last week in those instances, and when he decided to take off and scramble. I think that part of his game is going to get better as the season grows along. Cliff Kingsbury mentioned it. He used the phrase fight or flight mode for him in the pocket, being his first NFL game, not really understanding the speed. I think he is fully capable of doing what you said. It's a comfortability thing. I think the more dropbacks he has, the more live game reps he has against a game plan defense, you will see him improve there. Even what's more important to me is what we harped on at the beginning. He's got to play with better vision. He's got to get the ball out on time. He has to, the phrase that we've coined here in DC, and DQ said it this past week in the presser, you got to let it rip. There were instances where guys are open underneath. Cliff Kingsbury, I thought, called a really good game in terms of, getting him options against the blitz. He's got to let it go. I am curious. I pulled up the transcript a moment ago, and I put it down here for a second. Cliff Kingsbury kind of with a snarky answer to the response of Jaden Daniels running 16 times in the opener. He said, well, the reigning defending MVP ran 16 times. And I said, Cliff, go ahead with your bad self, because that's kind of how I felt about it. Jaden Daniels, don't let Chris Russell hear this, but I thought Jaden Daniels did a really nice job protecting himself on Sunday outside of the shot that he took to the head. He barely was touched, and I think that's why Lamar Jackson's been so darn good, is because he doesn't really get hit because they can't hit him. I think Jaden has a little bit of that to his game as well.
I agree with half of that. I disagree with the idea, well, if Lamar can run 16 times, everybody should be running 16 times. That sets yourself up for a very bad second half of the season. But I agree with you in the fact that Jaden protected himself. Mm-hmm. And that was our big question this entire offseason, is when you run, because we knew that he was going to run, when you run, are you going to protect yourself? Right. But the objective should not be for him to run as many times as Lamar Jackson should. I don't care if Lamar runs like 15 times. It could be 3 times. Like you can't compare those numbers to one another. I think you just have to make sure that Jaden is more comfortable, and I want to see him deliver. And as you said, and as Dan Quinn said, let it rip, because there are windows. They're smaller in the NFL than they are in college. What I don't want him to do, now hear me out on this one. Mm-hmm. What I don't want him to do is become so protective of the football that he's missing opportunities down the field.
Well, that would be,
because he's so good, and he was so good at LSU both years, and he was really good at this at Arizona State as well. One of the things that he has been excellent at over the course of his career is protecting the football, not turning it over. And I'm not saying I want you to turn into like a Josh Allen, who is kind of a turnover machine, but you sacrifice the turnovers for the good plays. The risk reward is very good in that instance. Or like a Brett Favre, who's just slinging it into he's thinking everywhere. He's going Shannon Sharp. Any hole he can find, he's going it into, right? But I want to see him. I don't want to see him be afraid of the potential turnover that he misses an opportunity for, even if it's just an 11-yard play. Just get ahead of the sticks, keep it moving, keep the ball moving, and keep progressing down the field.
Yeah, I think it's like I mentioned a moment ago. It's something that he will continue to get better at as he gets more reps. And I think the sweet spot, you mentioned a rushing sweet spot. Me and Chris were talking about this leading into last week's game. I think all season long, if this offense is having success and putting up points, they had an opportunity to put up 26 points last week. I think his sweet spot throwing the football is probably 23 to 25 attempts per game, maybe 25 to 27 if you're in a pass-happy type of situation. I think with that being said, like, everything with him is about reps, and my bigger focus today, there's now a full game's worth of tape out on him, and teams are going to know that he wants to bail. Do the Giants provide a spy for him? If the Giants spy him, does he have an answer to beating that outside of running?
Outside, and that would be just keeping the eyes down the field, and guys kind of, to an extent, not getting super comfortable playing backyard football, but also kind of playing backyard football.
Yeah.
If they start to spy, you got to keep either a guy, whether it's Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott, maybe it's an Austin Eckler, a guy that's running a route that's close enough to the line of scrimmage to where if things start to go that direction, you can kind of plant your foot off of your intended route and get to a point in the field where Jaden Daniels sees you, line of vision, boom, 5-yard throw becomes a 12-yard gain or something along those lines.
Yeah, I agree. I think the quick game, and Craig mentioned this, I think the game plan is going to be similar. You're going to see a lot of the quick game stuff this week. My concern, and what has been the issue when playing New York in the past, is their pass rush has absolutely teed off against our guys, whether it's them winning their one-on-one matchups. Wink Martindale did a really nice job elevating their scheme with the pen, with the stunts and games that they run, getting them favorable matchups. Can Washington handle what New York has up front? To me, that's where it starts. And if he gets hit early, how does he respond? It's a long game. If they can get him razzled early, is that something he can come back from? I think last weekend he showed it. He's not afraid of the pressure. He's got answers for it.
How important is it that Terry McLaurin is a focal point on the first drive?
It is his birthday. Denton Day. I mean, the kid's
happy birthday.
29 years old today. I would hope
Great age.
that they get him into the game plan. The Deontay Banks stuff, I don't know how caught up you are.
I am very much familiar with the Deontay Banks lore, if you will.
So he wanted Washington to draft him, guy that went to the University of Maryland. They chose Emmanuel Forbes instead.
To be fair, hindsight 2020, I would like them to draft him last year too.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine.
So would I. He's been trash talking. I think him and Terry are going to go at it today. You mentioned it, though. All it's got to be is a one-step smoke screen, a slant, anything to get this kid the football. Him, Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, your best guys running after the catch. That's the one area where I think Cliff had some shortcomings last week. That's getting the best guys the ball. Malik Neighbors had 12 targets last week for New York.
I hope New York is stupid enough, by the way, to put Deontay Banks shadowing Terry.
Please.
I hope they are dumb enough to look at last year where the quarterback play was not up to par, was not even average, where you got a guy in Jaden Daniels now that we know at some point is going to be above average. I hope they're dumb enough to put Deontay Banks on Terry and shadow him after last year's performance in a similar way to what Dallas did with Trayvon Diggs for years and then benefited because Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz and all these dudes were incredibly inaccurate and they weren't throwing the ball to where Terry McLaurin was actually open. I hope they're dumb enough to do that because if they do, it's Terry's birthday. That should be a big game performance from Terry McLaurin.
I hope so. I hope so for the sake of our broadcast, for the sake of me not turning into a meme. If either of us are going to get memed today, can we at least have it be a positive meme? That's all I ask.
That would be nice.
You know,
I don't think that's how that works, but that would be nice. I would love a positive meme. All right, coming up next, we'll give our official predictions plus a bold prediction for the performance. You can tweet us your bold predictions at the Denton Day at NELL_BTP. It's a Burgundy Gold Pre-Game Show with Denton Day, Lynnell Willingham on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980.
It's the Burgundy and Gold Pre-Game Show with Lynnell Willingham and Denton Day. Presented by Rude. If it ain't rude, it ain't right.
All right, Lynnell, we're 12 minutes away. 12 minutes away from what you have dubbed a must-win.
And honestly, I love all of our colleagues. I love all of you in the town.
Thank you.
It is a must-win. I don't look. I said it at the start of the show. This is a litmus test for you. This is a litmus test for you. If you want to prove that you are not still one of the bottom feeders of the NFL, which I don't expect you to be after overhauling your roster the way that you did, you got to beat the Giants. I'm sorry, you do.
I kind of expected them to be a upper level bottom feeder, if you will, just because the overhaul of the roster, like we saw that the roster still has flaws, and they have not addressed anybody they can cover. There's nobody on this team that can cover. I did see a stat from Noah I about how his coverage was and how PFF graded him incredibly high, but he played like 15 snaps.
Yeah.
And you're like, he played 15 snaps late in the game. Now, I do have a stat that I want to read to you. This is not going to make you feel better, by the way, so just brace yourself.
Okay.
Daniel Jones has gone 139 attempts without a touchdown pass. That's 15 away from the record of starting quarterbacks. Today, it will have been 365 days since his last passing touchdown. Remember, he ended last season, I think, with a couple of nagging injuries. 40 straight regular season starts without 2 passing touchdowns in back-to-back games. Yikes. Not good.
For years.
No bueno.
For years, we have been the team.
We have been his get-right game.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, I understand it's the second week of the season. I understand we're in September. But, like, for all of the past failures of Ron Rivera and that previous regime, this is how you separate yourself. I think Grant may have had the line of the pregame show. If you go and watch Washington defensively last week and you took Dan Quinn off of the sideline.
Or took him off the camera.
You'd think it was a Ron Rivera coach, Jack Del Rio coach defense. 110%. Make no mistake about it. So I feel like that has got to be improved this week. Offensively, I think it's another tough matchup because of the front. Defensively, you have, I don't want to say an advantage, but this is the closest you're going to get to being even from a talent perspective. John Allen, Daron Payne.
That's a nice way of putting
that.
Yeah,
they both suck.
Like, they suck, you suck, you're on the same level.
But John Allen, Daron Payne, you've got to finish. That's the key word for me this week is finishing. I mentioned it earlier, second in the NFL in week 1 in pass rush win rate. That has to be turned into sacks this week, or at least force Daniel Jones off of his spot and be able to plaster in this back end.
You got to have, I would say, I will set the number at this, gambling guy over here. You got to have at least 1.5 sacks today.
Yeah.
At least. Because if you finish the day with 2 sacks, it's fair to think after that, well, if you had 2 sacks, you'd probably get into him a lot more than the 2 times. You just bring him down 2 times. Maybe you get a 1-yard gain or something like that. You got to have at least a couple of sacks today. You should have had 3 or 4 last week. If you have 3 or 4, that'd be great today. But you got to get to Daniel Jones. You're absolutely right with that. You have to get to him, and you got to bring him down. I don't want to see Daniel Jones popping off like a 70-yard run. We can say that for 2 years ago against Philadelphia Eagles. I don't want to see that in the grand unveiling of the new stadium name in the home opener with this new era of football here in D.C. All right, before we get to predictions themselves, let's get to some bold predictions. You can give me one, you can give me multiple. You want one on the offense and the defense is totally fine, but let's get to a couple of bold predictions. Window of opportunity since 1989. The Window Man has been the educational window company. Get your free, no-pressure in-home estimate or at thewindowman.com's Fairfax showroom. So what is your window of opportunity bold prediction of the day?
I'll give you an offensive bold prediction, and I'll double up and give you a defensive bold prediction.
All right,
My
2 for 1.
Offensive bold prediction is that today the Washington Commanders rush for over 125 yards offensively. I think they are going to have an advantage in that area. I thought Minnesota last week did a nice job running the football against the Giants. I think Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, Jayden Daniels should be able to. 125 is not bold. We're going 150
all
yards
right.
rushing.
When was the last
This
time
week.
Washington had a 150 rushing? It's probably been a while.
I don't know, but normally during our lifetime as being fans, when you run the ball that well, usually this team comes out on the right end of the win-loss column.
I would agree with that. Let me just double check. I don't want to be like the idiot that says, when was the last time they ran for 150 yards? And it was like last week because Jaden was going as crazy as he was. They had 138. So you're right. 125 then in that instance, not particularly bold. 150 definitely is. Offensively for me, Jaden throws 2 touchdown passes today. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week against Tampa Bay. I think you'll see 2 passing touchdowns this week against a much lesser secondary for the New York Giants. Now, in terms of who's on the receiving end of those touchdown passes, take your pick. I'd love it to be Terry McLaurin for his birthday. I'd love it to be De'Ami Brown because they're going deep to De'Ami, right? Let's go deep to De'Ami. If you're going to post it on social media, well, damn it, give it to us on a Sunday against an actual opponent. But I think Jaden Daniels, he finds some success throwing the football. Things get simplified after last week, and he throws 2 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure. I think, as we talked about, Washington's going to have the advantage, I think, in terms of receiving options versus their defensive backs and linebackers. On the defensive side, though, what's the one thing that we anticipated when we saw Dan Quinn, Joe Witt being brought over from Dallas? It was the turnovers. I think Washington turns over the Giants 3 times today. I think Daniel Jones in this group. Yeah, I think Daniel Jones in this group are reeling right now. I think he is starting to hear the public scrutiny from fans, opposing coaches, opposing players, his parents,
his own organization, by the way. There was a point Daniel Jones was asked about that after last week because a Minnesota player went on the radio and said they started to feel bad for him, which is embarrassing. I mean, that's not very nice that he said that on radio. I heard the full thing and it kind of made sense, but it's still not very nice. And then Daniel Jones was like, I don't really care about the outside noise. I care about the organization. But I was like, my brother in Christ. It was the organization that said it this offseason, too, because they went on Hard Knocks and said, we don't know if you're the guy.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we'd love to have Jaden Daniels. And well, guess who has Jaden Daniels now? So, like, it's people inside the organization that are almost actively cutting the guy down, too. I haven't seen anything like this. A quarterback that got paid $160 million to seemingly be hated by everyone.
I've never seen a quarterback get paid off of 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions and under 3,500 yards passing. That's what I've never seen. So I always have my little conspiracy theory. I think he was a part of the Manning Passing Academy. You know, they love the Mannings. The Mayer family loves the Mannings. That's why they drafted the kid. That's why they extended him. As we're looking at the pregame right now, I want to see who's leading Washington's huddle. First of all, the uniforms look pretty sleek. I will give them that.
They do look better on television than I thought they would.
They got to win, Denton. They got to win, Denton. Look, I don't care how they do it. Yes, I do. But if a win is a win, is how I will settle for a win is a win.
A win is a win.
This week.
A win is a win. My bold prediction, we mentioned sacks. Louvu gets 2. Frankie Louvu gets 2. I think you'll see him play with much more speed. And I think the understanding of kind of what went wrong last week, the thing that I think I love about the coaching staff, I'm not going to say I love it because it's only been a week, but the thing that I think I love about the coaching staff is that they're not afraid to get better. It almost felt like last year. Now, I get it, sitting duck season for Ron. He knew it was over in spite of the fact that he thought he was going to get a Super Bowl ring, LOL. But it almost felt like they were afraid to make adjustments that would lead them to get better, at least from the surface. I don't think this coaching staff is the same. They'll give it to one another. It's all love at the end of it, but they're not afraid to address one another and say, like, we got to fix things. Tell the truth Monday, right? All of those things. I think the defense is going to come out here playing significantly better on the front 7. I can't speak to the back half. I don't know what to expect with the back half. I don't even know who's going to be starting opposite of Benjamin St-Juste at this point. I don't really feel comfortable with any of the guys that are going to start opposite of Benjamin St-Juste unless you want to put Mikey Sanders still there, but then you come into the height situation there that you just can't fix. But I think Frankie Louvu, I've started a prayer circle already. You can join if you want to. Let's get a late growth spurt for Mikey Sanders still. I think he's still old enough to where it's not out of the question that he can grow 3 more inches.
If that's the case, then put your hands together, people.
I mean, if he gets to 6 foot, I'm paying him $100 million tomorrow. I'm paying him $100 million tomorrow.
He's another cat, though, that I thought going up against Chris Godwin in your first ever NFL game is tough.
Tough.
He got to be a little bit better this week, too.
He
Wan'Dale
Robinson's
does. Not easy.
Not easy at all. But I think Frankie Louvu has 2 sacks. All right, prediction time. Must win for you. I can't imagine you're going to go the opposite direction, but I've been stunned before. Your prediction is what?
I think the home environment, I think all of the noise this week, my tweet has gone triple, quadruple viral about the shirts and putting cute stuff on T-shirts and banners and wallpapers. Hopefully they take that personally and it's bulletin board material. I like Washington in a semi-rout. I like the Commanders 26-14.
26-14. That's a big-time cover, and we'd be partying. Maybe not partying, but we'd be very happy at the end of this one. My prediction, I did follow the Kevin Sheehan rule of advice here. Kevin Sheehan rule of advice. Happy gambling. So I did happy hedge. I think Washington wins this game, but I do think New York covers. It's going to be a close one, but I kind of want it to be a close one. Like a blowout would be nice, yes, obviously, but I feel like there is a little bit of, there's something to a close one and getting punched in the face, but knowing you can handle it and coming back from adversity. It felt like they were opportunities last week to, once you got punched in the face by Tampa, to still be in the game, and then the kicking stuff happened, and you're leaving points on the field, and that's not great. But I do think that I think this game's going to be close, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to really perform well in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to go 24-23. Washington gets the dub. They improve to 1-1 on the season. And maybe, just maybe, Lynnell, we start to put to rest the idea of Daniel Jones being some form of kryptonite to this organization.
I hope it's the end of it for my sanity and for yours.
Yes, I need that. You need that. It makes our life a lot easier if Daniel Jones does not play well this evening. All right, if you're listening on 106.7 The Fan, you're going to get the Nationals in a second. So if you want to hang out with us in the in-game show, you got to switch over to the Team 980, or you can jump over to YouTube. We're live on YouTube for the first time this weekend. You can see my pretty face. You can see Lynnell's pretty face. I should have done my makeup. It's fine. But you can see us and come hang out with us on YouTube. We'll be looking at the chat throughout the entirety of the game, so let your voice be heard. We're taking a quick step aside. When we get back, the game is kicked off, and we'll officially be in our in-game coverage as Burgundy Gold Game Day continues on the Team 980.